We've come to the end of 2024, and man, has a lot happened in the sports card hobby this year. The number of news stories and cards that have gone up and down and changes in the market and things that have happened, both bad and good, has been absolutely incredible. And today, we're going to debate what the biggest stories of the year were and decide overall, was this a great or horrible year for the sports card hobby? Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to a special edition of Cards on the Table. Teapot Doug, thank you for joining me today. We're gonna recap the year a little bit because, man, this year so much has happened. How are you guys feeling? We made it to the end of the year here. Do you have your breath? Have you caught your breath from everything that has happened in the sports card hobby this year?
I'm trying. How about you?
Yeah, I think my thoughts are together on this. I think it'll be nice to kind of air it all out here and get a collective.
Oh, well, I look forward to you airing it out here. There's so much to cover. So what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the biggest news stories of the year, but I want to look at some of the bad news stories of the year, and then I want to look at some of the good news stories of the year because we had a lot of both. And then I also want to talk about some of the specific things that happened in the sports card market with some specific cards and new releases and things going up and things going down, both bad and both good. And then we'll kind of come to the end and maybe assess that question. Was this a great year for the sports card hobby, or is this an awful year for the sports card hobby, or somewhere in between? So let's break this down. Let's first start by talking about some of the bad news stories that stood out this year. And what I want to hear from each of you, I'm going to read some of these just as a refresher of so much that happened this year. And I want to hear from each of you, which of these do you think was most impactful? Which is going to stand out to you in the future when you think back on this year? So stories include the card show thefts. We had a lot of those. $2 million at Dallas. $2 million of memory lane cards stolen out of a hotel. Thefts at the National. Thefts at the Philly card show recently. Seemed to be a theme. We also had the manufacturers being stolen from. Upper Deck was stolen from. Topps filed a lawsuit against somebody who had stolen from them. CT scanning. The topic of a lot of discussion that really emerged this year. A lot of discussion, a lot of debate. Card cleaning. Remember that? That was a big topic. Hertz Card Care and PSA saying no to card cleaning. That was a big storyline, especially throughout the first half of this year. We had the fall of Beckett, the downgrading of grading, the grading volume falling, and then of course the owner of the parent company getting convicted of fraud and the uncertainty about Beckett's future. We had Panini and Fanatics lawsuiting against each other and that class action suit continuing on. We had the rise of the number of very poor athlete autographs, from Anthony Richardson to George Pickens and to so many others. We saw some awful, awful autographs more this year than ever before, including some apparently faked autographs where athletes were having people sign for them and PSA was refusing to authenticate them. We had a lot of that kind of stuff this year. We had exclusivity really hit. We had Panini's football and basketball products not have autos of a lot of players, which wasn't great. We had Fanatics not get autos of certain players in some of their products. We had this fighting amongst them with these exclusive, contracts with players and licenses and all that kind of stuff. We had Fanatics events, which came on the scene strong with Fanatics Fest, but then canceled their next subsequent pattern of shows after that, never to be restored, and now are maybe out of the regional card show business altogether before they even started in it. And then we had, of course, the National in Cleveland, which was filled with infrastructure challenges, hour lines to get out of the parking lot, hour lines for the restroom, Wi-Fi that never worked, hour lines or more to try to get something to eat for lunch. A little bit overwhelming the city of Cleveland, or at least that convention center, it felt like. These were just a handful of some of the bad news stories that happened this year. I could pull out others, but these were some of the biggest ones. So I'm going to ask each of you, of these stories, As you think back of this year in the future, which one do you think overall you'll remember as the most impactful? Teapot, you ready to go first?
Okay.
I'll start with you.
All right, I'm gonna count them down from 3, but I'll talk about my top one the most. So, the third one is just the tension and everything between Panini and Fanatics. Just, I would have liked to see this a little more graceful and like a handoff, and just, I don't know. There's probably no way around that. So, but I do think that's been impactful, and I think it's led to what is one of my other choices. So, the second one is the watering down of products. I've really scratched my head at some things this year, most of which I just go, whatever. Some of them I get a little get off my lawn on and get, old man shaking his fist in the sky about, obviously. I wish both companies would be really intentional about keeping specific things really pure and not destroying them. You're trying to make money, you're a for-profit business, you're trying to meet demand, you're trying to keep, play the game of wax prices down versus supply up and all this stuff. But like, they take every single thing that's a good thing and they just make it more and more and more and more until it's not a special thing anymore. And that's really disappointing. And it also feels like they are just repeating things and doing a lot more copycatting, and it's just like the movie industry at this point. But number one for me, probably unsurprisingly, is the CT scanning stuff. And the main reason is it's a huge blow to the trust of sealed product just in general. Obviously, I said the bigger problem is historically keeping wax and wanting to save that as an investment for the long term. It really calls it into question. Has this box been scanned or not? But even with the new stuff and even with the stuff that's highly printed, if I'm a breaker and I hit a big card in a 1-of-1, I just feel like suddenly it's like, is it CT scanned? Is it CT scanned? Now, the flip to that is maybe, why do they care? They hit the thing. More people are now going to come over if they do think they're CT scanning and, okay, cool, I'm going to chase the big hits with this company because hopefully they are CT scanning because then I can hit the big hits. The whole thing just, it sent shockwaves, I think, through the hobby. For me, it was just like, oh, crud. This is like a big part of the mystique of the hobby is what's in the box, what's in the pack, what can I get? And seeing that, and it just sort of destroyed everything, in a way. So I think that was the one that's like, I don't know what the menu, you can't do anything about old boxes. That's the big problem. There's nothing you can do to.
You can open them.
You could open them.
Open them. Just open them. If you have old boxes, just
we got a
open
few
them.
90s boxes. I'll go get them right now.
Open them.
Let's rip them.
Well, nobody is going to CT scan those boxes because they're not that expensive.
Somebody in the comments, 5 people in the comments right now are going, you're already CT scanned your boxes, Jeff.
I'm not going to debate with you about the CT scanning thing. I'm not even going to get into it today. Doug, top stories from the year.
Yeah. First thing that kind of, doing this exercise, what stuck out to me is that we notice the bad stories a lot more than the positive ones, really. That said, there are a lot of these that I just completely forgot about. I don't know if that's a testament of old age or if it's just that the hobby news cycle is that short. It doesn't take very long for one bad story to be overshadowed by the next one, and it's just on and on and on.
That's true.
I would say my number one, though, is all the theft and scams that have happened over the course of the year. You read off some huge numbers, talking about $2 million from Dallas, $2 million from Memory Lane, 6-figure sums from Philly, and I think also, the National in Philly. So that's just a huge, glaring number, and there's a lot of people being victimized by dishonest people. But then CT scanning is absolutely right behind that. There's no doubt about it. And hopefully that manufacturers are taking steps where this isn't going to be a problem in the future with their packaging or however they're going to address that. But for every product, every sealed anything that's this year or earlier, it's going to be under scrutiny, and there's nothing you can do about that. That's going to be an issue. There's a lot of people who have invested in sealed wax, and there's a lot of people who would like to, break older products, and it's all going to be scrutinized, unfortunately.
For me, I'm going to go back, Teapot, to I think it was the second one on your list, the watering down of products. This was a disappointing year in that we had the incredible power in football and I'm talking more about the 23-24 product because that's the stuff that really came out this year. We had the incredible power of big name rookies like CJ Stroud, who performed really, really well in his first year. And even though I've never been a fan of Anthony Richardson's career potential, his cards were certainly hyped and chased. There were a lot of players. On the basketball side, you had Victor Wembanyama, and yet, unfortunately, it was all a little bit messed up and destroyed from a sports card standpoint, because the products that you would want to find their autographs in, like Prism, you couldn't get their autographs in. National Treasures, flawless. There is no CJ Stroud auto. There is no Victor Wembanyama auto. It was a shame. Then Topps comes out with their own set of products, which I appreciate. You got the autos there, great, but then they're unlicensed. So it was this weird trade-off year. It was like, man, I really would just like a fully licensed, autographed Victor Wembanyama patch card, patch autographed jersey card that everybody could chase this year. And I would really love the same thing for CJ Stroud. Give me that ultimate chase card, but we didn't quite have it this year. We lost that opportunity because the manufacturers are in this battle over licenses and exclusivity and unlicensed first license and autograph exclusives. And unfortunately, this year it did hurt the collectors. It hurt the collectors. And so I don't love that. I can't wait till we get past this stage. I think it's a weird stage. Yeah. And it's one of those things why I think that's the most impactful story, because 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, when a Victor Wembanyama Prism Black 1 of 1 comes up for sale at a major auction house, or when his Topps Mercury, patch 1 of 1 auto comes up, they're going to have to explain, do a little video about it, educate consumers. Well, back in the year 2024, Victor Wembanyama wasn't allowed to sign autographs on Panini products. So that's actually his best Panini card. Or, Victor Wembanyama, the Topps stuff, they weren't licensed. So that's his best Topps card. Or people are always going to now have to educate and refer to it. So I think that's the story that's actually going to be the longest lasting out of all of these. All right, let's turn our attention to good. I just went through a lot of bad stories, but there were a lot of good stories from this year as well. And before I list off these good stories, one other good thing that happened to us at Sports Card Investor was we got a great sponsorship this year from Arena Club. I want to thank them. They were a great sponsor. They helped us do this show all year long. And they, of course, drop their slab packs every Friday. Tomorrow, a new set is dropping. And they do all kinds of special things. One thing they've done during the month of December is they've announced this special sweepstakes they've been doing, right? This sweepstakes for the Super Grail, they call it, which is actually 2 tickets to the big game in January, flights to the big game, hotel accommodations to the big game. And if you out there bought any of their slab packs during the month of December, you've gotten an entry into that contest. $1 equals 1 entry into the contest. Tomorrow's slab pack drop is the last opportunity this month to get into that contest, or at least on a Friday. You might have an opportunity next week. But if you want to take advantage of that, promo code SCI20, download the Arena Club app, get yourself a late Christmas gift, be part of this slab pack drop tomorrow. There's always incredible cards, and it's the last chance for that sweepstakes. We really appreciate the partnership with Arena Club this year. They've been good. So that's been a good story for us. But there's been a lot of good stories throughout the whole sports card hobby. I want to run a few of these down too and let you guys choose what you think the most positive story that will stick with you into the future will be. So we had Fanatics Fest New York City emerge for the first time, an event that, although maybe not perfect, a lot of good came out of that. The National, although not perfect, had record attendance numbers and tons of excitement around it. We had the return of Topps football and the return of Topps basketball products. Granted, not licensed, but they're back, and Topps is back in the market for both of those products. We had the USA men's basketball team win the gold medal. That resulted in the triple auto. That was a big, of course, chase card for the year. Never found, but it was a big chase card for the year. Topps now has kind of gone wild this year with a lot of that stuff. They had the Ohtani 50-50 stuff. That was another big sports story of the year. Ohtani 50-50. The home run ball, which went for, crazy millions. And then there was Ohtani 50-50 cards, also part of the Topps Now thing. You had bounties on some of these cards. You had $1 million bounty on the Topps Chrome Victor Wembanyama 1 of 1 autograph card, which I don't think was ever accepted, but even though the card was found. But you had crazy bounties throughout the course of the year. You had the MLB debut patch cards this year. We had them last year, but this year the lineup was insane, including that Paul Skeens card that everybody, including the Pittsburgh Pirates and Livy Dunn, got in on and started throwing things into the hat on that card. And of course, we had Paul Skeens mania in general. We had Victor Wembanyama mania. We had CJ Stroud mania. We had Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix and, lots of players like that. A strong quarterback class this year that people were chasing. We had record sales for a lot of cards, really for the first time since 2021, the number of cards that had record sales this year, especially Exquisite Basketball. Just been red hot this year. PSA made a lot of advancements this year. Vault, eBay integration, Graders Notes, revised submission process. They sold Golden to eBay. And Cards HQ opened. Definitely my personally most impactful story. So many good stories this year. There are many others as well. Doug, I'll start with you this time. As you think back through so many of these stories, what stands out most to you?
What stands out most is kind of what I said in the last segment, that you went through that list of things and they're all just kind of like, okay, those things happen. They're not nearly as interesting and dramatic as the bad stories. So I can kind of understand now why the bad stories get all the highlight, because these just don't move me as much. But I wanted the answer to this question to be Topps Chrome basketball and football. That's what I really wanted it to be. But for reasons I'll talk about later, that missed the mark for me. The answer, embarrassingly, I'm wearing the shirt. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but it's Fanatics Fest New York. Now, I wish I was dressed different. I feel like a total shill at the moment. But that event is the best hobby event that I've attended. It is, a nice trip to New York once a year, which I think is pleasant. It is the best thing we've had since another thing I talk about way too much, the Mint Collective. It is better than that show. It's just not in Vegas. So I think what it does for me, it shows what's possible as far as entertainment in terms of events in our hobby space, and it takes it beyond anything that we've experienced before. And the future of that, I think, is bright, because they are already talking about doing it bigger and better next year. If they were to move that to Vegas, then 2025 would be the best year in the hobby ever, for me.
Strong take. I like that. Teapot, how about for you?
My favorite thing is just the growth we've seen as a company, and I've really enjoyed working here in the shop and having an opportunity to talk to the retail associates and talk with Ryan and Carter and help just be a part of the conversations here. It's really exciting. The shop's obviously been very successful, and it just feels like this year was our best year yet as a company overall. We saw really strong growth in our Market Movers membership. Our database doubled in size. We've put out a lot of new features. We've improved existing features. So all of those things were like, just, selfishly, like you say, my favorite part of this year. But zooming out, I'm really happy that things have kind of stabilized. You look at the SCI 500, and it's seen the seasonal ebbs and flows, none of which ever peaked out more than 4% in either direction, just stable. Yes, there have been record sales. Yes, some cards have come down a lot. Some went way up and came down. But like the hobby overall, it's stabilized a lot. I'm hearing there's a lot less of like the super, super, super hot money, and just more, I'm hearing more about collecting. There's more collector content. It's more balanced, and that's what I always talk about, is it's balance. There's nothing wrong with speculating and flipping cards. There's nothing wrong with saying you invest for the long term. And there's certainly nothing wrong with collecting, which is the foundation and backbone. So to me, that's what I'm really encouraged by. There's been a lot of growth, a ton of new people. I met so many new people at the National this year. And in that regard, like the amount of support and just kindness from people saying thank you for the content, for the apps, for other things, it's very edifying, and it makes it really easy to get up and come to work every day.
I think you said that very, very well. I think you said that very, very well on all fronts. Obviously, personally, Cards HQ, the growth of Sports Card Investor, the growth of our digital products, all that has been obviously very personally very impactful for me, and I know for our team overall. I'm not going to choose that one because that would be perhaps a little self-serving. I love what you said about the stability of the sports card market. I completely agree. It's been a great year for that. Fanatics Fest had a great time there as well. Completely agree. I'm going to pull one off the list, not because it's really that significant in the long run. It's not, but just because when I think back on this year, I'm always going to remember the chase for the triple auto. I'm always going to remember putting out a $100,000 bounty and then having Ken Golden go over the top of me, and then me going over the top of Ken Golden, and the little fight that we had, and then the who knows who's going to get it in the mail, and then nobody got it in the mail. I mean, somebody did. Who knows what happened, So as of the filming of this, at least, maybe someone pulls it out before this episode airs right now. I don't know, but it's been that was a wild stretch this year that I really enjoyed. Had some fun with. We did some spoof videos and had some fun with it. So I'll always remember that from this year. But anyway, good stuff. All right. I want to talk a little bit about some specific sports cards and the sports card market, and then we're going to answer the question about the year overall. And by the way, guys, as we go here, I'd love to hear your best and worst of the year. So let us know in the YouTube comments as well what you think, if you agree with our selections or what you would pick as the best and worst stories of the year. Sports card market. Worst parts of the sports card market this year. We had some players whose cards really tanked. Connor Bedard. Wow. Down the most out of some of the guys I'm going to name on this list. Anthony Richardson, tanked. Will Levis, even CJ Stroud, the golden boy for a while. His cards are off a lot this year. Victor Wembanyama. What? But yes, Victor Wembanyama. Maybe that's the signs of overproduction, and signs of too much hype. His cards are down a lot this year. Bronny James, Wyatt Langford, Corbin Carroll. All guys who are down a lot this year. We also saw, obviously this year, we saw a whole bunch of unlicensed cards enter the market with Topps products coming out. So now you've got bunches and bunches of unlicensed football and basketball hitting the market. Some of that has been better received than others. Some of it has been, not well received by collectors. It feels like Wemby rookie cards, never ending. We're continuing to get new releases. I looked at the release calendar. There's going to be new releases through the first quarter of 2025 that are going to continue to have Wemby rookie cards with the rookie card symbol. They're not stopping. They're not stopping. And we've seen a lot of it this year. As you think of all those things and kind of the sports card market in general, what stands out to you as the worst thing that you're going to remember back to, Teapot?
There's two things that stand out equally. One is the Wemby thing starting to feel like Zion all over again.
It's going to be way worse.
Barring the injuries, knock on wood. There's a ton of them. His PSA 10 Prism base card is now the most gemmed, highest number of PSA 10s in existence of any sports card ever. And there's more still being graded. There are 24,011 PSA 10s, 40,000 graded. So there's going to be more of those. He's got a lot of cards, but he's got a lot of copies of the cards too. And you've alluded to this, you said it before, but like the weird thing with like Topps unlicensed plus Panini just hasn't helped at all. And seeing his market tank just overall, basketball isn't in a good spot. I know just about everybody I grew up watching basketball with who used to love basketball, played fantasy basketball. It's like lost its appeal to me. It's just nonstop three-pointers and turnovers and carrying and travels, and viewership's way down. It's just very hard for me to get into. It's very hard for me to watch now, and that's a weird thing because I own some of my favorite cards are basketball cards, and they will continue to be. But I yearn for that game to be a little bit different, and so that makes me worry about with Wemby being the poster child and all of that. The other one, though, that I just find really concerning is the NFL quarterback market and just seeing year over year over year of quarterbacks now disappointing. Everybody disappointing. I made the video that upset a lot of people but turned out to be right about Trevor Lawrence, and the other ones were a little easier to spot from a mile away with Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. I didn't expect to see this from CJ Stroud at all. Not this and not the big declines that we've seen. What's going to come of his cards? And now you've talked about this year's rookie class, and they've shown some signs, but can they really break through into that top 10? Can any of them? I'm not too particularly optimistic about that. You know where I stand on Caleb Williams. So knowing the way football is quarterback or bust for the most part, or when somebody does get really interested and excited about a running back and then they get injured their third year into the league and don't last past 30, and receivers can't get the ball unless they have a good quarterback and a good offensive line. There's so many things that just make it really tough. And football is a sport I very much enjoy watching still. So I'm concerned about that because we've seen this real surge in interest in football cards, but I'm afraid enough people just get totally smoked over time. It's just going to kind of fade.
Those are good thoughts. How about yours, Doug?
You stole my thunder. I really wanted to talk about the USA Triple Auto. That was going to be the thing I led with. But last segment I kind of teased how badly I wanted Topps Chrome basketball and football to be something I was really happy about. But that's actually my biggest sort of card set failure of the year. I just don't think they should have released it yet. Not until you have the licenses. That would have been a really, really amazing release. And now I think you've taken away from it a little bit by pre-releasing an unlicensed product. And I get it, like they're trying to capitalize on Wemby Mania and CJ Stroud and things like that because they were able to get those the licenses for those autographs, which is just another thing that I really hate. I just hate this back and forth, this struggle. Like, I've got the autos, I've got the license, and there's just nothing meeting in the middle, and we're the ones that are going to lose because of that. So that product was really disappointing for me, and I think it's taken away some of my anticipation for the actual licensed set whenever that comes out. And then overprinting, man. Like, overprinting, we talk about it a ton. We've talked about it, in our last episode. We're talking about all these inserts that are racking up. There's 47 Color Blast in Prism football, or whatever the case is. Overprinting is really getting scary. I mean, we're getting 90s levels of printing cards, and I don't know that we necessarily have enough buyers in the market to justify that, right? I think we need, maybe, if you're going to go that route, do more sets. Don't just print your current sets to the absolute moon. No one's going to win in the long run in that scenario. We're going to have this huge correction that follows that. I like where the hobby is. I mean, the market is pretty steady and pretty healthy, but this is the one thing that could definitely derail that, is just print everything as much as possible.
I'm surprised neither of you picked Bronny James as the biggest the shock of his cards dropping. Is that not the biggest story of the year that you'll always remember?
Where do you go from the bottom? Like, I've never had any sort of anticipation of that being a good investment.
All right, you guys covered that topic well. I don't have anything to add. I think you guys identified the areas that I would have spoke to about that one. But now let's go back to some good news here again. Let's talk about the pieces of the sports card market and sports cards that actually did really well in 2024 and what you'll remember from these. We had certain areas of the sports card market that were super hot. Prices increased a lot. We, of course, had the star cards, and specifically the 1984 star Michael Jordan cards that went wild in the sports card market. Vintage on-card autos have really become popular this year. We saw record prices being set on vintage on-card autos, including the Mantle, which recently sold, set an all-time record. We had exquisite basketball from the 2000s, record sales across the boards. It seems like that market has never been hotter. And then specific cards that were really hot this year: Paul Skeens Mania, Aaron Judge, Travis Hunter, Saquon Barkley, Paige Beckers, Sam Darnold, Bobby Witt Jr., Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Bo Nix. All of their cards up a lot as you look through the course of this year. I didn't even mention Ohtani because his cards were already hot coming into the year. He wasn't hot enough to make the list, but obviously incredible performances by him as well, and spikes in his cards throughout the course of the year. Juan Soto now, his cards are heating up too with all, so a lot of big names this year and the impact on their card market. Doug, as you look at all of these things, what are you going to remember about the year 2024?
Honestly, I think a lot of the records that are being broken, because that's such an encouraging sign to me, to seemingly every month a new record sale for a card or an athlete or whatever is being broken. And I think that bodes really well for the entire hobby and the longevity of it. This is not, it's not 2020 anymore. It's not every card is on fire, but specific cards and specific players might still be setting records. And I think that's really important, that even as we've kind of moved away from this bull run of cards, that we're still able to do that. And I think I really appreciate, this may be controversial, I don't know, but the bounties. I like the bounties a lot. I think it just creates a lot of excitement for products that may not have gotten the same excitement otherwise. I think it's really interesting to watch people chase bounties specifically, and I think it's really interesting to see when they get redeemed, when they don't, if they decide to go to auction, and what happens to that product once they have turned down the bounty and go their own path. That's really interesting to me for some reason, and I'm not sure that anybody necessarily agrees with that, but I actually really like the bounties.
It's been fun. I've been a participant in some of them. Yeah. It's been fun. Teapot, what's your takeaway as you look back on these stories? What are you going to take with you?
The thing that I'm really encouraged by this year was baseball and baseball cards. And over the last few years, I've gotten a lot more knowledgeable about baseball and learned a lot more about the card market for baseball. I think it's in a much healthier place. And one thing I've observed is that I think, independent of anything Topps or Fanatics has done intentionally, within the baseball card collecting community, there already exists some of what Fanatics said they want to do with like tiers of products and an identity of products and how people treat them. The Bowman Chrome First Auto is incredibly important, and I've come to appreciate it a lot more in the sense that it is the card. Like, it's the card. It's not one of 2,000 rookie cards or 3,000 rookie cards and a billion rookie autos and all these things. it's the card. So it has a very clear identity as the best investment card that you can go for long term, but it also thrives very much within the speculation market in the short term. And it's unique because it's out before these players ever hit. So there's that interesting dynamic. There's a ton of really, really, really cool collector cards in baseball, almost all of which is game worn and game used. They're doing game dated stuff. They're putting the little stickers on them to tell you what moment they came from in games. There's a lot of cool stuff being done. And so you have sort of this, I don't know, there's tiers. There's like Topps, papers still relatively affordable. I know people have gotten really upset with the increase in price to Topps Chrome and some other products, and I understand that. But overall, I think baseball's in a really good spot. I think you've got just the right number of superstars sort of carrying the market and thriving and doing well. This was a really good year, better than 2023 and overall in terms of the number of people who delivered and broke out. And that makes me really encouraged about that eventual complete transition of basketball and football, and hopefully how Topps will carry that and usher it into a new era and help continue to stabilize things and try to make sure there's some health to that market. I hope that's the case.
I hope so
it
too.
is.
Can't get here soon enough.
I hope it's the case.
For me, I think those are all great points. For me, of course, two of the things that I've been talking about on this channel for over 3 years, those Star Jordan cards and vintage on-card autographs.
Yeah.
I mean, the number of videos that I've done at card shows hunting vintage on-card autographs and saying, why aren't these more valuable? Because their populations are so tiny. And now all of a sudden, record sale, record sale, record sale, record sale, record sale, record sale on vintage on-card autographs this year. It's pretty cool. And I'm not taking credit for that. I'm just saying it's neat seeing the rest of the sports card hobby, see that and fall in love with it, hopefully, the way that I've fallen in love with it. And I'm not selling mine. I didn't buy mine to now flip them and sell them and try to make a bunch of money. I bought mine because I actually really like them as collectibles. I think they're really cool. And I'm going to continue to buy them, even though it's a lot more expensive, even though now I'm losing auctions. I used to always win auctions. I bid online, I would win all the auctions. Now I lose all the auctions. Like, what the heck? I can't believe these people are paying this money for this vintage on-card autograph, but they're paying the money for it. So it's cool. It's cool to see. It's cool to see. And this will definitely be something I think about, from this year. So let's answer the final question of the episode, guys, before we let everybody get on their way and, finish celebrating their holidays, their New Year's, all that kind of stuff. Overall, with all the good and bad, was this the best year ever for sports cards? Was this the worst year ever for sports cards in the hobby? Or was this somewhere in between? Where would you place it? Who wants to start?
Let me jump in here. I need to know the criteria. What constitutes the best year or the worst year ever? It's not the best year ever for me. That's probably 2020 when I was making a killing on something as silly as Project 2020 cards, right? That was really easy to do, and that's not very easy to do anymore. And, we've talked about all the negative stuff. I hate to rehash it all, but we've talked about all the theft and the scams and issues with this breaker or cleaning cards or CT scanners. So I think with all of that consolidated, it can't be the best year ever. There's a ton of positive things that also keep it from being the worst year ever. So right down the middle, right in between, it's a mix, which most years are probably going to be, right?
Yeah, it's fair. What do you think, T-Pop?
The best year ever was like 1997. When I was young and innocent and just didn't know about all these TMZ issues going on in the world and in the hobby. This wasn't a bad year. I said I think it's a better year than the last few. I do overall. I just think some things have stabilized. It was exciting, all the money that could be made, and we did very well. And I think anybody who was in early and bought stuff did really well. But I mean, what goes up must come down, and all that stuff came down. And the last few years just saw a lot of people on the other end of that biting the bullet and taking big losses. And I don't like that either. I like the game. I like the competition, and that's what it is at the end of the day. But you don't ever really want to see somebody like completely lose their life savings or their shirt on things. And so continue to try to be a sober realist in the content that we're doing. And I think that's what's going to make every subsequent year better too. Just spread awareness, education, and try to encourage people to collect and invest, both if they're going to do the latter. And that's going to help stabilize things. So it was a good year. It was a very good year overall.
I would say it was the best year since 2021. I think 2020 was so exhilarating, as you said, for many reasons. 2021, you had card shows opening back up for the first time. And even though the market went wild at the beginning, but then dipped for the rest of it, it was still an exciting year in many ways. But best year since then, for sure. Not the greatest year ever, because as you mentioned, all the challenges that have have occurred this year, but I'm hoping in many ways this was a foundational year. I'm hoping when you look back at 2024, you think this was a very important year because it was a year when things did stabilize. It was a year when things started to tick back up in many ways. It was a year when you saw more investment coming back into the hobby, both from a kind of a card standpoint, but also from companies and their growth and what they were doing and how they were expanding and how they were treating the hobby once again as a real growth market and a real growth opportunity in ways that people hadn't really thought of it as much that way over the last couple of years as things were dipping. And although I agree with you, the unlicensed top stuff didn't hit this year as great as it could have, it still got them back in the game. And so once again, kind of foundational for what's going to happen in years ahead. I expect 2026 to be an incredible year, 2025 to be good, but I think 2024 may kind of set the foundation for the future. And if that's the case, then I'd say overall, it was honestly a pretty darn good year, all things considered. What do you guys think? Let us know what you think of the year. Let us know in the YouTube comments, and we certainly appreciate your support being with us all year long. And if you don't mind, support or sponsor Arena Club. Go check out their new slab packs when they drop tomorrow, Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Use promo code SCI20 for 20% off Arena Club slab packs for first-time buyers. Thanks for watching. Happy New Year. We'll see you soon with our next one. Take care.